thought would work wasn't actually didn't work for you. I'm still meeting people to this day traumatized from COVID because they never took action fast enough, and even those who did still got traumatized. And rest assured, unfortunately, when governments start running out of money and when cost of living go out of control, a few things can happen. Number one, Jesus appears from heaven, the governments all burst out into tears and start crying. And you hear Daniel Andrews, Jacinta Allen get up and apologize most profusely for all the horrible things they've done to the people and give all the money back to the poor. The likelihood of that happening is I'm not sure how high it is, but I think Stephen would agree it's relatively low on the scale of probabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Another likelihood is they're going to cut back their own expenses and live simply. Again, I'm not so sure that'll happen either. The third one is they'll grab money from anywhere they can and hold on as much as they can until it collapses. And unfortunately, that phase three seems to be the way they're going. So you don't want to be one of the ones caught in that, and you don't need to be by taking action and getting the angle grinder at lock, which I got before you get your bike stolen by someone cutting it. So see me as a case example where the universe used me to suffer to help all of you realize that what you think works doesn't. I was told it was the best U-lock you could get. And I was very, very shocked. I remember going to the bike shop and they said to me, well, they said once upon a time that was a good one, but they said the new angle grinders just cut through them like in seconds. And in fact, what they did say to me as well was to GPS tag my bike. One of the guys at the bike shop told me that they had the U-lock. They literally went at Garden City Shopping Centre. They cut up the U-lock in front of broad daylight and just told people, oh, yeah, no, this is our bike, apparently. And they stole the bike. Now, because they had a GPS tag on the bike, they found out where it was. 6 guys turned up at his house with tattoos and the bike was returned forthwith. But in other words, if you hadn't had the GPS tag, they wouldn't have even got the bike back, which I didn't have. So there's 2 things I've done. So what I've done is I've asked myself metaphysically, what's the message from me? So I am tightening up my own protection like never before. I have my bookkeeper doing research for me and things like that. So we're moving into this AI kind of state. And Stephen and I were talking the other day, and it's shocking what they can do with AI now. I discovered that all the expenses I've been paying on Fiverr to get spreadsheets done, I don't need to do anymore because as simple as ChatGPT will do it for me. And I got all my betting data, my investment systems I've created using statistical algorithms, all done up for me, calculated, hedging bets, everything, all for free within half an hour of programming on ChatGPT. And this is where the world is going. So governments can do that. They could go, Stephen Pettit, let's have a look at him. Okay, let's search the net, let's do this. What's the likelihood that Stephen Pettit's income of X is actually in alignment with his real income? And where's he likely to have income sources? That's the kind of things they'll be able to do now. So basically, we're living in this digital state. And this is where I'll get Stephen to comment on this slide particularly, because these are some of the things I'm aware about that are in the pipeline already. They're certainly looking at super. I can tell you from unfortunate first-hand experience that governments raise a comment. I see it with friends of mine. It's happening. That's happened to me personally with a particular situation. And the ATO being so ridiculous on this one situation, I've actually had the lawyers go to me, these guys are nuts. I'm like, yeah, tell them to piss off. That's literally what we've had to do. De facto death duties, unscrupulous debt collection, and Stephen, what other things have they got?
Oh, well, they're already basically brought in death taxes. The ATO is really clamping down on testimony trusts and how they're in
Oh,
operation
yes.
and
I
how
saw
people
that.
are, yeah, uh, how they've changed some of the regulations around the 2-year rule, and then if you're not living in the property and all this sort of stuff, claiming the full CGT discounts. So watch this space. They'll really hammer that coming in. It's a test. It's a test for getting rid of CGT discounts on private property. Um, full stop. Super, the same thing around the tax on super. So it used to be if you died, say the tax year is July to June. If you died in July, your tax was only really for that month. But now what they're saying is it doesn't matter if you died in July or June. You basically are being taxed for the full year. So there's no pro rata tax on super when it's taken out and distributed to your family. So that's coming. Treasury's already confirmed that government is looking at changing excises, changing uh, CGT rules for investment properties for trusts and for the family home. They're looking at a tax regime for trusts, especially for passive income earned inside trusts. This is all going through committees now. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to be implemented tomorrow, but it does mean that it is going through um, uh, the committee, which means it's been highly looked at. So it will get, I would say, some of this stuff we'll start to see in this budget, and it'll be then headed off into the Senate committees, which will, probably got 12 months there. Both sides of politics want as much tax that they can get because they're spending it quicker than anything else. What else is out there? The data matching, what Warren was saying is correct. The data matching rules are getting heavier and heavier. Doesn't mean that they're getting to the point where they're analyzing everything. It just means that it's all being data matched, and if they've got a suspicion, they can go and search it better. As quantum computing comes online and as it's cheaper for quantum computing, one of the things that's happening now is quantum computers and AI and all the computers that run AI, they can actually run on the disused um, mining equipment from crypto. So what they're actually doing now is they're taking the old crypto farms, like the old Bitcoin farms that are no longer fast enough to mine Bitcoin, and they're repurposing them for AI and for basically supercomputing. But it's the first stage of quantum computing. So it's not exactly a quantum computer, but think of it as a computer that, say, a farm um, is 10,000 individual computers. It's been able to do 10,000 different things at once because each computer is solving a problem at the same time without having to worry about what the other problems are solving, and then that can all feed in. So the speed at which computing is going to happen is just phenomenal. And so they're reusing old mining equipment. I met with a guy the other day, and he's got hundreds of thousands of very early Bitcoin miners, and at the moment he's just using them for liquidity. But he's been working with guys to basically run AI on these things, and the more and more they can do that, the faster and faster, the more powerful AI and all the other tools will become. So.
Yeah, well, I had a friend tell me the other day, but they reckon they're about a year or two away, where it's conceivable that quantum computing could hack Bitcoin and all kinds of stuff. So we definitely to be
End of
looking,
this year, I've been told.
yeah,
Yeah,
sobering.
yeah.
Um, so this isn't random, and it's very coordinated. Look, I could run us through. I used to run seminars on this about the Zionists, the Khazarians, the different groups. Robert Kennedy, RFK, did a very interesting speech the other day where he talked about this whole division that's being created to distract from what's really going on. And he showed how much BlackRock owns and even the truth about Russia and Ukraine and how it's all about controlling the land, the farming, and everything. And yeah, look, there's so much happening and so much about disempowering, sickening the population. I've had to go through all kinds of cleanses with my liver and everything else. I've realized how much we've got going on now. And I think we're at a crossroads. In fact, unfortunately, and I'm sure Stephen would agree, I think we're already walking very quickly away from the American libertarian freedom
Mm.
towards another path. Would you agree?
100%. And I think we're walking a path that is basically a path of destruction because we're not retaining the old empire, which is the American empire. We're not embracing the new empire, which is the Asian or BRICS empire. We're still trying to withhold some of the old British, stuff that and the European stuff, which is just imploding faster than we can see. I don't know if anyone watched the Security Council conference that was in Munich, but there was nothing good that come out of that conference at all. Not a thing. It just showed that Europe and anyone who is attached to them is a sinking ship and a fast sinking ship, and it looks like that we've hitched our wagon to them. So
Yeah, gosh,
not good, not good at all.
no, not good at all. In fact, it makes me think. I'm going to show you this. I always love the Proverbs in the Bible because King Solomon wrote this, the wisest king who ever lived. And he says, um, a couple of things here. Um, a prudent person foresees danger and takes precaution. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. It's a powerful one, isn't it, Stephen?
Very, very.
That's kind of Australia. So think of it. A prudent country like America's doing foresees danger and takes precautions. The simpleton, like Australia's following right now, and the governments and the people, and suffers the consequence. And basically, there's a lot in Proverbs that Solomon talks about the fear of the Lord leads to riches, honor, and long life. And when you study the concept of the Lord, it's more talking about fear of the higher intelligence, the universal law, the way everything works on a higher level, rather than just simply living a life that thinks we can do what we want and get away with it. And basically, this can be the motto for everyone today, hopefully, that you can foresee danger, and hopefully by now you can foresee danger to your wealth. Just type a Y or raise your hand if you're here because you are foreseeing danger to your wealth, and you're like, no, screw this, I want to do something about it. I'm not going to let these sons of bitches take our wealth, basically, and make it easy. So yeah, I'm not letting those buggers take my e-bike. Put it that way. I've gone to insane lengths now. And so think of my e-bike whenever you think of your wealth. An e-bike I can replace for a few grand. You get your wealth taken off you. Um, it's not as easy as a 3 grand e-bike replacement and an anti-angle grinder lock. So
But don't just think of wealth as in monetary. Think of wealth as in the holistic wealth.
yes.
Your health, right? Yes, there is the financial wealth, but then there is your relationships. Relationships with your family, with your Lord, with other people, your community, right? And basically, if you look at it, say, the three-legged stool approach to it, and if one of them's off, the whole lot can come crumbling down. And one of the things that I've been dealing with over the last probably 3 months is health issues, and that has thrown my entire organisation of my whole wealth thing. It's thrown it wobbling, right? And I know some aspects are good, but the health aspect is throwing the whole thing out of whack, right? And they're doing the same thing, throwing chemicals in our food, making it harder and harder to get good quality food, pushing other drugs, restricting other methods of oh God, like homotherapies and all this sort of stuff. With our relationships, they're trying to break those down in massive, massive ways by bringing in all the DEI crap and transgenderism and all this sort of that they are trying to destroy our relationships from very early age with our kids, right? With our kids in our communities. They're breaking communities down, right? So they are pulling all the good parts of wealth, right, away, right? And you need to have them all together if we're going to have strong societies, strong families, and just a strong yourself. So,
Well, here's another one, seeing as I'm in a bit of a Bible mood. But reason why is years ago when I first got myself awakened and got myself a lot out of the system. So I like what Stephen said about health. Because that was the same thing. I had horrific health about 24 years ago. Horrific. I had chronic autoimmune. I was in constant pain, couldn't think straight. And I remember meeting an off the grid health doctor who actually saw clients, was being targeted by the medical board because he refused to license. Spent 10 hours with him, 3 months on all kinds of homeopathics and drops to remove all the toxins and poisons. And I was a whole different man. I went from being literally fat and bloated and terrible to looking really in good shape and quite normal.
Hmm.
Even lately, so what Stephen said, I started getting health issues about 4 months ago and I couldn't understand it. I'm like, I've been in good health for a long time. In fact, 9 months ago, I had a perfect. And in the end, I started to realize that, look, there's actually a lot going on in the energy field and it's really hitting me harder. It's increasing the pressure, the stress, all that kind of stuff. Because whether we like it or not, scientists have found that we're affected by the collective consciousness. And
Hmm.
fortunately, only very recently, in fact, a couple of days ago, I was put onto someone who's one of these shamans in the mountains who Stephen would like, off the grid guy, who's discovered a lot of secrets. And the moment I saw him a couple of days ago, he said, "Let me look into your eyes." He goes, "Yep." He goes, "I know why you've been having UTIs, why you've been having ear infections." 'Cause I'm like, I fucking eat like God. I do exercise. I just don't do much wrong. And I feel sluggish in the mornings, which I've never been. He said, "Yep, your liver." And he said, "You've got parasites that have been picked up and been injected into you and numerous other stuff." So he put me on a series of stuff. And oh, mate, it certainly moved things through me. My eye flared up like crazy because he just basically did iridology on me. Already, I'm like, holy moly, I actually went for a morning walk with energy today for the first time in like since I can remember. I noticed that I did pole dancing today and I felt no minimal pain in my body because the muscles weren't sore, you know. And so I agree with Stephen. You really do want to be taking steps on your health because when your health isn't good, you don't give a fuck about anything else. You know, you really
Hmm.
don't. You don't care about your assets. You give them all up to get your health back. And
Yeah.
yeah, like I know if you could get all your health back in perfect health and give up all your wealth in the click of a button, Stephen, you go, yeah, no worries. Where do I transfer? You know?
And if you have a look at what Trump and his team are doing in the US, they're repairing the exact same the exact things. They're repairing the monetary wealth of the US by bringing the economy and making the economy stronger, bringing manufacturing and stuff back. They're making RFKs out there making the health better, and they're getting rid of all the DEI woke bullshit and trying to repair the relationship health,
Yeah.
right? So they're rebuilding the wealth of America by targeting all three things that make great societies, and they're doing it right now. So
Yeah, something we talked about before. You see, when you have a good religious foundation, which America are getting back, you flourish. And not saying like it doesn't matter if it's Hindu, it doesn't matter if what it is, like it, but basically it gives you a moral standard and gives you security in that. Like I like what it says here, which we would agree on. When the godly or the righteous are striving in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked are in power or imbeciles, the people mourn. In
mm,
other words, when basically you have morons running the show, you mourn because security of wealth is very important for your health as well. Like it's very stressful if you know all the money you've worked for you could lose. And so this is why plan for what's difficult while it's easy. Put the anti-angle grind lock on your e-bike now before someone basically finds a way to break through it, you know? Um, and right now, it's still easier than it was. You can still move money offshore. You can still do all of that. And again, we don't know, but as we learned in COVID, when the door shuts and it becomes harder. And so we have wealth insurance, we have car insurance, we have health insurance. But the question is, have we actually really secured our wealth? And this is why offshore is such an important topic, because it's such a good way to protect against the crazy government. It really is. Like um, those of you who came to Graham Daniels' webinar said that they've changed the laws now, like the biosecurity, so that the government can seize your gold in Australia. And you probably know that, Stephen, but they've done that now. He
mm.
said the laws on silver are more vague, but gold, pretty much the governments can take your gold tomorrow. You aware of that?
Um, so it gold they don't actually differentiate my understanding between gold and silver. It is basically it's the way that they've started to write the regulations. Mind you, a lot of this has been done by regulations. And um, the thing is, when laws are written, they're written in a way that the department can then freely write regulations to enforce those laws, right? So, and this is where a lot of law is hard to interpret because it actually comes down to the people enforcing it. So we've got people like OzTrack and FinCEN is the American version, Financial Crime Enforcement Network, but they are pushing that anything that can be used as legal tender other than notes can be confiscated if it is deemed to be of some proceeds of crime. Right. Now, the way that they've written it is super, super vague. Like, a process of crime could be that, I don't know, so believed that you're involved in the drug trade. Now, it could be anything. They only have to have a suspicion. And this is where it's getting very, very murky. So. There's a lot of lawyers out there that don't know where this is going to end up.
No, this is good to know. So I just realized we've got a few more slides and I'm definitely going at the slower pace. So I'm going to run through quite a lot of slides now just before we go. They're quite quick ones. Then we'll get on to some practicalities with offshore. The smart money is already moving. So don't be the last to figure this out. That's pretty obvious. They've done it a long time ago. We've got this generational divide, which is happening now. Under 40 voters, 65%, there's some evidence are supporting aggressive wealth taxation, socialism of some kind. And that's just because they've missed out. Whereas people like most of us, we had a chance to participate, When 30 years ago, when I literally, you could work in the shittiest job, getting a shitty payment, you could still buy a house. Now you could be a lawyer, senior associate in a big firm, and you probably struggle still on two incomes. So it's a very different world now. So this is a kind of comment, and I've actually heard this stuff say. I've almost heard these words verbatim numerous times. I've heard stuff like that from my own kids, like basically we don't give a shit, just we hope the government takes everything and, in other words, they've lost hope. And the way you have a prosperous, happy society is when people have a dream. This is why Trump is doing, because unlike what Trump once said, he pretty much said he wants the American dream. He wants people to have a belief in the future. One of the things that gives hope, mental health, stability, security to people is having a home, having money, having security of wealth. Once that's at risk, you start to become hypervigilant, you start to become stressed, you move into survival, your pelvic floor tightens up, your parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system overactivate, adrenals start to kick off, your cortisol starts to spike. Before you know it, you're having blood sugar cravings, you're having coffee. In other words, everything starts to break down when you break down the basics of what gives people security. And that's one of the reasons why the Buddhists and that do teach you that ideally you want to get to the point where you realize money is transitory, it comes and goes. But in saying all that still, and I do that better than most, if all my money got taken to me tomorrow, I'd have to be high dosing vitamin C, magnesium, zinc, and going to kinesiologist every hour for about a week to get on top of myself so I didn't have a complete breakdown emotionally and in my parasympathetic nervous. So securing your wealth is good for your health, it's good for your nervous system, it's good for your peace, and having a dream and a hope for a future. And it's exciting when you go overseas and start to see, like in Bali or even other countries with options and go, well, it may be possible to buy property in these places, but Australia, we've got a whole breakdown of society happening right now. We've got ridiculous laws that have been passed, the hate speech laws. And I'm not saying it's going to go this far in Australia, but believe you me, socialism can get pretty bad. You can get to the point where cost of living becomes unsustainable. And when that happens, you eventually end up with a reset of some kind. And again, I don't know if it will go this severe, but you can't ignore that possibility. And I certainly like to plan for the worst, but hope for the best. Because when governments start targeting wealth, things don't really work as well. Because the whole purpose of society is for citizens to have stability of wealth. And really, governments are meant to keep order in society so citizens don't steal from each other, don't kill each other, don't rape each other, and basically don't kidnap each other. That's really what basically it should meant to be. They're meant to pass laws so that if someone breaks into your house, you can take action, get them caught, and deal with them, and not have complete anarchy where people start running around having a shooting war. That's where governments play a good role. Once governments start passing rules on this and how fast you can ride your e-bike, and that's particularly on my radar at the moment. Basically, how what you can do with this, what you can do with that, what you can do on bushwalks, starting to give ability just to take wealth and confiscate it because it suits them. You've got a real problem, and so protection is no longer option; it's essential. You want to protect your wealth. And look, honestly, I think you're mad if you don't go, you know what? Let's say that you got $1 million and you think, I don't want to lose that. You should be willing to spend up to $50,000 minimum to protect that wealth. That was what I was taught, a high net worth. I didn't have a hesitation. Stephen might have even a higher number, but I mean, if you basically knew there's a real risk of losing, let's say, your $1 million tomorrow, would you pay $50,000 to be sure that you wouldn't lose it? Of course you would. Well, I hope you would anyway. Sometimes taking a gamble works, and this one, it really isn't. And that's why we do all this stuff. This is why we put things in place. And believe you me, to stay in good health physically and in good financial health, it's a bit like swimming in the tide. If you just jump into the water, you will go over the tide without doing anything. Naturally, things tend towards stagnation. So if you basically leave your house and never clean it for the next month, it'll be a dust bowl very quickly. You got to clean your house. You got to work at it. And to keep yourself financially successful, I remember Stephen saying the quarterly balanced portfolio, according to Harry Brown. You want to be on top of it. You want to be restructuring every year, looking at what you're doing, even every 3 months. You want to be working with the best of the best to keep your wealth on top of it, keep it growing. You want to make sure that you're ahead of the game. Right now, we're making sure our business doesn't become archaic because we're not up to date with AI. You've got to be onto it all the time. If you want to keep in good health, you don't just suddenly go on a McDonald's binge, stop working out, doing any training, and don't care about it. It takes a disciplined diet, disciplined training routine, regular stuff like breathing, swimming, good sleep routine, all that kind of stuff. And likewise with wealth, you want to make sure you set yourself up so it's hard to get and hard for the tax office to get any more than they legally are allowed to get from you. And so this is the kind of idea of offshore. So this is one of Stephen's things he taught me. I love this, and I must admit, I use this to this day. So Stephen, I'll let you share more about this because this is your little baby.
Yeah, so the Five Flags framework, it was something developed back in the probably 60s. And it originally started with just the three flags, but as the laws of the world changed, you had to split business and assets and your citizenship and your residency. So that's why we're now at five. And we could throw the sixth in there as digital as well. But the one of the things that so the five flags is all about separating different aspects of your life across different jurisdictions, right? So you're playing the different jurisdictional arbitrage. So your citizenship, having more than one, passport, legal identity. It's also the right to live somewhere, the right to move somewhere, to be exposed to a different country, its set of laws. Same with having a tax residency, right? Being tax resident in a different location, you can take advantage of that location's laws. Say, for instance, if you move to Dubai is a hot topic at the moment. You, as an individual, Dubai does not have any income taxes or basically any taxes at all, right? So any money brought into your name, which is not a good strategy, but it is definitely a strategy, is tax free. Plus, it's a low tax jurisdiction. Corporate wise, it's 9.5%. With a few other strategies put in place, you can get close to zero, if not zero. But just by moving, and the old adage of, and I see this all the time with people, is Australia's got the best of this, the best of that, best. No, it doesn't, right? Some of the best medical treatments aren't here in Australia. Some of the best things around food and living and lifestyle, cost of living is not in Australia, right? So by moving your residency and going somewhere else that is better, right, where you're going to be treated like a human, not like a number, um, is referred, and you can have two or three residencies, but only ever one tax residency, and that needs to be in a low tax jurisdiction. Business base and asset haven, you want to split those across different jurisdictions. So keeping your assets in a a a more asset protection jurisdiction, compared to where your business is. Like your business might be, say for instance, your business is consulting in the oil and gas sector. So you might actually have that business based in the US, right? And there's a whole heap of strategies around being located in somewhere like the US and running a consulting business, and then having your wealth structured in a country like Singapore, right? Gives you the separation
Yeah, it's
of the
good.
two jurisdictions, and it gives you the separation of where it is.
I like that.
Playgrounds, which is my favorite. That's where you go on holidays. It's where you give back. It's where you can take advantage of different medical treatments. It's where you can buy goods at a cheaper rate. So, for instance, you can buy um, certain products overseas at a very much discounted rate, because different countries have different tax systems for importing luxury goods, and different tax bases and different VATs or GSTs. So you can actually work out where you want to spend your time. This helps with also minimizing your tax, by not being stuck in a high tax jurisdiction. So the five flags is all about diversification. We diversify in investments, we diversify in life, we don't eat the same food every day. So this is a framework for diversifying your entire um, world strategy.
I like that. So basically, what you're saying is that, especially if you move through that, you might be saying, well, rather than putting all your risk in one country, you've got an income-based consulting business in the US. You've got a Singaporean or Hong Kong to store assets. You've got, I mean, I was saying this to someone the other day, like, 'cause someone said the problem is if I go to Thailand or Bali, I'm going to pay taxes. I'm like, you're thinking in the old mindset. I said, you're
Yeah,
assuming it's like Australia. I said, I don't know anything about you. I said, Australia know everything about you, probably to the size of your balls, right down to your first pee. They know everything about you. Whereas if you go to Bali or Thailand, they know jack shit about you. So why would you just turn up in Bali and go, oh, I'm going to set up a company in Bali, get all my income there, and just do the same thing as I did in Australia? You're like, no, you go to Bali, you might get your tax residency in Dubai and base there, or you might get it in St. Kitts or somewhere like that. You may even get it in Bali, but then you have your business maybe in the US or in Hong Kong, your assets in Singapore. So most of it's going to be tax free or low tax anyway, and you just bring into Bali what you need to. And you can even fly into Hong Kong and get a debit card with many of the banks or with Air Wallets and places like that. And I mean, Air Wallets will open bank accounts online pretty easily now for offshore companies, Stephen. Am I right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So Air Wallets, you can have global accounts in your central account in, I think it's 18 different countries or 19 different countries. And you can then transact between that, those different countries, and then your credit card or your card that's there can be linked to a different currency. So if you're in the US, you use US dollars. If you're in Europe, you use euros. If you're in Indonesia, you use the Indonesian rupee. So uh, you're going to save money on your international transfers.
I mean, what do you reckon? Would you like this little map here, Stephen? This is pretty a good starting
Yeah,
point.
yeah. It's a good starting point. You can tweak some of these because not
How would
all
you tweak
one.
it?
So the thing is, it's starting with the individual, because not all countries are suited to all people, right? For instance, I've got some people that would never ever entertain Dubai or Hong Kong. They just wouldn't. So we need to. So when you work with them, you've got to structure around their unique needs. But on a general scale of things, running your business these days, uh, USA, Singapore, Dubai, yeah, that's fairly, and it comes down to the type of business as well. Um, and
What else would you put? Like Estonia, where would that go? Business?
Estonia for business, but that's for EU focused, right? So if it's an EU focused business, um, if you had uh, so in the investment holding, Hong Kong, Singapore, Dubai. You may even look at places like the Seychelles in there. You may look at um, I'm just trying to look. It just depends. Investment. So you might put Malta um, in there as well. So,
So
but
Malta,
a lot of
Cyprus?
it comes down to the individual. And the other thing is that people, the number one thing people make mistakes of is they jump online, they see all the gurus on YouTube and TikTok and all that sort of stuff. All they're doing is peddling their jurisdiction. You end up getting it. You're not mixed with the CFC rules, the CMC rules, which are heavy in Australia, and your strategy falls apart because it's not tailored to you. And I see this all the time that, especially with tax residency, it's the number one thing. Paraguay at the moment, I don't know why everyone's pushing Paraguay at the moment. Yes, it's okay, but probably for about 5% of the population because it's a terrible place to try and get to, right? It's definitely not everyone's cup of tea. When there is way better places in the world for tax residency. We've just worked with a couple of people that we made their tax residency Indonesia. Um, Predominantly, they're living in Bali and Lombok, but Indonesia, by using the rules, they've got a good tax residency in Indonesia. They're paying very minimal tax, and away they go. There is so many different places out there, but it has to suit the individual. That's the number one thing, is it's got to suit the individual. So because you've got Georgia in the old Eastern Bloc state, that's there's a lot of people push that as well. But once again, it only suits um, a, a small amount of people. So
Yeah, no, this is really useful, Stephen. Thank you for all that. So obviously we could go on and on that. I'd love to, but yeah,
well,
we're
yeah. So with business setup, you could use Mauritius or you could use South Africa. You could because it comes down to what your business is, and who you're trying to target and what you're trying to do. So
yeah, Mauritius. Yep.
yeah,
So what we might do now, I know Singapore is always a good one.
yep.
Dubai, if you like living there, it's a good one, but it is hot as fuck. I
Oh,
could, mate,
yeah, yeah.
horrific.
The amount of people that over the last couple of years that have reached out and said, I moved to Dubai because someone said it was a great place to go, but it's a fucking hellhole, right? And that comment I have heard over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah,
Dubai used in the right way is a good opportunity, right? Because if you structure it the right way, you only need to have 90 days a year in Dubai to maintain tax residency, as long as you do not establish living in some other place any more than 183 days, right? And you can maintain tax residency in Dubai. Um, the and then most people go, I want to live somewhere more than 183 days because I want my kids in school and that sort of stuff. And that's where you got to look at residencies where you can actually be there 365 days a year and it doesn't affect your structure. Trying to jump into what everyone else is doing doesn't work. Doesn't work.
No,
Yeah. Yeah. But it's
thank
a
you,
good
Rob.
location for the right person. It's a really good location for the right person, especially now. They've totally changed how things work. So
So really, it's like buying a car. There's no
yeah,
one size fits all. They book in for a meeting, they have a chat with us, and we do customized, tailored plan as to what's going to work best. That's how I tell people. Would you agree?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. So let's just keep moving through these before we take questions because I'm still got a few to go, but I'm getting on top of it. Yeah, so structuring your wealth can grow a lot more. I mean, it's fair to say that when you're giving 30 to 40% away to the government compared to 10%, learning to go offshore and being willing to make the hard steps now for a better future can be powerful. The Grants, who are good friends of Stephen's and ours, still to this day, thank me and would be surrogates for my child, I think, if I asked them to. So much so they're happy about having moved to Thailand and basically, as Daryl said to me, we've kept most of our wealth now and we don't spend hours doing stupid compliance shit that we don't need to do. So
Hmm.
the common mistakes I want to throw in here as well. Um, Options waiting too long, as we learned in COVID. I had people arguing with me right up to the point where the government shut borders and you no longer get vaccine exemptions. Um, I was getting vaccine exemptions, mask exemptions very early on when everyone else didn't think it was an issue and it was an overkill. And I was convinced it would happen. And I haven't always made right judgment calls, and that one I happened to get it right. Certainly on this one here, I'm pretty confident in saying there'll come a time when getting money out is harder. Graham Daniels in his webinar with us actually said the Jews that escaped the Holocaust, and you know this, Stephen, were the ones who had money in Switzerland and were able to bribe the Nazis and others to get out. So those who had plan Bs and wealth offshore and set up their things were able to leave and get out. So the people that were prepared, the Jews that weren't, they end up basically in ovens and a terrible time in history. Um, but many didn't go into there because they'd already taken their stuff to get out. So, yeah,
So just a real quick one, just on investing in Australia, a foreign investor can um, basically be have tax-free investments in Australia if it's structured the right way. Pretty much the worst that it'll be is a 10% tax through the withholding system. So,
correct.
but as an Aussie, you're basically going to pay anywhere between 25 and 50% tax on investing in Australia. So just by making a switch, right, becoming non-resident and then investing back into your home country, all of a sudden you can save yourself, say, I don't know, minimum 15, maximum, say 40, 45% tax. So
It's
it's
good.
it's
Yes.
yeah, it's just reframing everything. Uh,
100%. It's a whole different world. And I would love to do a 5 hour masterclass on this. Maybe we will one time. Just one quick question, and I do got to keep moving to keep within time. A lot of people are throwing in everything from Vanuatu to Cook Islands. I like what you once said, Stephen. It's a bit like buying a car. There's millions of options. The
mm,
internet will promote you everything, but won't tell you all the problems. And Vanuatu and Cook Islands are now very much on that blacklist, which is good for maybe holding some money, but you got to be very careful before you do it. Fair to say?
yeah, yeah, and but for the right person, they're very powerful in their own mind. You got to remember that there is three tiers to all countries in the world, right? You got the white tier countries that are like, if you look at it, and I'm looking at it from an Australian perspective, right? So from an Australian perspective, white tier countries are the US, Japan, New Zealand, Canada, Europe, Hong Kong, Singapore, and yeah, Malta, right? A grey tier jurisdiction is the BVI, Bermuda, Dubai, Thailand, and Georgia, Turkey. Black tier countries are Belize, Panama, um, uh, let's throw in Mauritius and South Africa. But from a South African, A white tier country is going to be the Seychelles, Mauritius, and I don't know, say Hong Kong and Singapore. But Europe and the US are grey tier countries to a South African, and black tier countries are Australia. Australia to a South African can be a black tier country. It can be banned because there's so many South Africans moved here. It's on the hit list. So there's 192 countries out there. They all have their uses, but it all has to come from you as the individual and the perspective looking at those countries and how it's going to be perceived across by not only where you're resident, but also if you're engaging in business, right? For instance, if you're engaged heavily with the US in business, you want to be in the US. Americans are parochial, right? Even having an Australian company dealing with the US, you will probably get more no's than yeses rather than having a US company that they can contract with. Right? So it's all got to be relative, and it's got to be done to the individual.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you, Stephen. So just moving through. So basically, you definitely want, if you're going to do it, one thing I want to mention is you don't do offshore stuff without proper advice. It's one thing the government will look at you and be onto you a ton of bricks if you do it sloppily, and things like that. They actually have special units that look into it. So you definitely want to make sure that you get advice, you get guidance, and do it properly. And we do provide that option to work with people to help you get advice and help you work, and then link you with the licensed professionals that are going to help you get the job done. I always like to give people the options of what you can do. And there's 4 of them, okay? Your first one is just literally do what most people. As Kevin Spacey says, as in Horrible Bosses 2, jack fucking shit. In other words, you just do nothing at all. You be a kind of complacent person, you live in hope, and you do what's called a hope and pray strategy. You hope that God will somehow sort it out and everything will be okay. Okay? That is an option. Not one that we recommend, but the reality is most people will do to pray and hope. Life's too hard, too many other things to deal with. Option 2 is you stay put, but at least do some kind of asset protection within Australia. So that's better than option 1. So you stay put, but at least, but do asset protection, within Australia. So that's better than doing nothing at all. At least that way you deal with stuff, you make sure that everything gets done. So that is a genuine option for you to deal with, and make sure you at least don't basically ignore it. So yeah, get some guidance, make sure you trust the setup, your properties have second mortgages or mortgage strategies so that they're not easy to get. So, and that is a legitimate strategy, and that will provide you powerful wealth insurance. So basically that's what you do. So that's the second option. You basically don't basically do that. So you have asset protection, you get your properties protected, and we can help you with that too in our wealth check system. The third one is you stay put in Australia, but you at least go, fuck this, I'm going to get something offshore. Like do what the Jews did in Nazi Germany. Many Jews were like, no, we like living in Germany, but we can see that this Hitler thing could be an issue. So they started protecting their wealth, and they were glad they did. And I don't know about you, but I know that I never like paying for insurance on my car or my health. And I'm always happiest when I waste my money on my car insurance and I don't crash my car and nothing bad happens. I'm always happy when I'm in perfect health and I just give the health insurance companies money for free, basically. Because I'm not really for free, it's for peace of mind. So really, if you have wealth and you have a decent amount of cash or gold and you don't have an offshore, you really are crazy. I'll say categorically do something about it. Okay, categorically. Book in, have a chat, and we can at least get something happening for you. Option 4 is there's going to be the odd one of you who's just said, you know what? Why not become a global citizen and do what Stephen does? I mean, that's what Stephen is, but Stephen's often in Australia. So basically, become a global citizen. That's what I'm actually in the process of. I'm in transit between option 3 and option 4 at the moment, is what I'm doing myself. I am kind of an option 3 moving towards an option 4. So my aim is to be a Bali dude who can ride motorbikes without licenses and all that kind of stuff, which I love doing, but then come back to Australia and enjoy Australia in the same way I like to holiday to Dubai, Thailand, or anywhere else. Because
I
Australia
can
has to,
remember when you were an option 2.
oh, don't even go there. Yeah, that was a dark day, Stephen.
Back
That
in the
was
dark days. I finally got you to
hey,
option 3. Now I'm moving you to option
no.
4.
Hey, look, I'm a Taurus. I'm a lawyer, I'm a former lawyer, former government worker. Enough said, you know. In fact, you'll laugh at this, Stephen. This is honestly what happened. When I first read Rich Dad Poor Dad, it was like 25 years ago, okay? And I remember Grace read it. Now, Grace is a go-getter, as you know. She goes straight away, oh my God, this is great. Let's do it. And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, what's wrong? And don't you like it? I go, I love it. I said, but I'm so fucked. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, I've been trained to be a slave since I was born. I said, I grew up in the school system. Then I worked for the ATO. Then I did a law degree. I said, I've trained to make money as a smart guy working for other people. I am fucked. I can't fucking do this. She goes, well, I'll help you. I said, you're going to have to help me. So that's why Grace and I still work to this day, even though we're divorced, because cannot be more grateful enough for her. Grace was like, come on, let's just do it, you know. She said, rat race, that's not for me. She goes, I don't care if we live on she actually said to me at one stage, and that's when I realized we could do it. She goes, I don't care if we live on no money for 2 years and we just virtually live on cheap food, which is actually what we did. She said, let's just build this business and get our sovereignty. Don't know if you know that side of Grace, Stephen, but she did that. She paid that price. She said, let's just live simply. She goes, we'll
Yeah,
make it work. She goes, I don't care. So she's a good lass, isn't she?
very much so. Very much so.
Yep. So, global citizen. So many benefits. I mean, basically, you have so much more freedom and shit like that. And really, I just tell people realistically, you've got to give it time. It
Mhm.
takes it takes between 6 to 12 months, maybe more, to do it. So if you're thinking about it, get moving now. Don't wait. I think by the end of the year, goodness knows where we're going to be at as Albo and his, merry men and women do whatever they're up to. So, um, on that note, yeah, look, before we go into the wealth check and how you can take some action, I mean, people were firing questions at us, which we didn't have time to answer. Please feel free to throw your questions in the text chat.
I
Aidan,
had sorry, just quick one. The quickest I've had someone do it was just under 8 weeks,
yep, yep,
and they upped and moved. So,
yeah.
but they had already had had a good place to go. So
So, yep, anything else? So, yep. Any other questions? So feel free. How do you do? Oh, yeah. William asked, how do you do option 3 without triggering control foreign companies? Yeah, I don't want to get too complicated stuff, but look, the simple rule of thumb, William, with option 3, which is just to go back and refresh it, is that you're not doing that for tax minimization, okay? If you're living in Australia as a resident, the government will just say, you're our bitch and you will pay us taxes. And if they get
yeah,
wind that you've got an offshore company, trust me, they will look at it and they will try and argue. You're going to have to go to extraordinary costs. You're going to have to basically set the company up with all kinds of management boards, um, genuine, not shammy offshore systems. And the starting price to even do that, you're looking at 100K plus because you can't even do a tax minimization. You have to legitimately set up an offshore thing. I have a client who was a Rich 200 who decided who lives in Adelaide to do their training offshore, and they didn't at that time. They did some with me when they moved and worked with some lawyers, but they literally spent 300,000 just to set up all their trading systems offshore, all management boards, so it was a legitimate and it would pass any audit. So don't even think about taxes with offshore if you're living in Australia and basically things like that.
yeah.
So
There is a strategy around it, as Warren said, but one,
it's
be
costly.
prepared to pay, but also most people find it very, very difficult to do what's actually needed because you've got to
Yeah.
divorce yourself from everything. So
Yeah. So I just tell people unless you're very committed to that, just, yeah. I don't tell people to do option three for tax. You're doing it for wealth protection.
It's
Tax
asset protection.
as a protection. So we're really, oh God, time has just flown. I think, yeah, Stephen and I'm sure we'll do some more of these. We always end up having good chats on this.
Mm.
Renee says, I have three young children and can't leave the country. I can holiday but not make a long-term residency overseas. Would this be an issue? Well, not if you're doing option three, because all you're doing, Renee, is setting up wealth offshore. That's fine. If you're
I
talking
hear this a
about
lot, though. I hear this a lot. Oh, I've got three young kids and I can't move overseas. Why? Are they super glued to Australia? You do know that outside of Australia, there's some of the best schools, some of the best environments for kids to grow up in, rather than Australia. Um,
yeah,
and
congrats on that. Yeah.
yeah, and even if there is divorce issues or if there's custody battles, I've had clients who have moved, taken their kids with them while in the midst of a massive custody battle. Um, and the judge and everything okayed it. It can be done. Um, so that is that's definitely doable. It just comes down to good planning and why you're doing it, right? More so than anything else. Yeah. Because I one guy that I worked with, he had a severely autistic son, and the best place they ended up moving to was Malaysia, of all places, because of the center that he was able to get him into was in KL. So they moved up there for that.
Now, thank you for clarifying that, Stephen. Um, Brett says if option three, I'll answer this one for you, Brett, is roughly 100K to set up, how much would option four be? Well, the problem is it's like saying how much is a car. And number two, I wasn't saying option three is 100K to set up. That's only if you're talking about taxes. Option three is more about wealth protection, okay? That one can be, just whatever, depending on the jurisdiction. That could be like a 10, 20, 30K or, depending on whether you want advice, where you're setting up. So that's just more like an offshore plan B with wealth protection. Taxes, once you start wanting to do anything about taxes, you're going to have to change everything. That's why I mentioned 100K minimum. Option four, well, that depends on what you want done. I mean, you can have anything from just getting some advice, a consult with Stephen and myself, or getting a plan or getting some guidance to help you move offshore, right to the whole thing beginning to end. And generally, yeah, I mean, I know that basically I've got a few different people. I'm with friends who do this service, and all of them you're looking somewhere between 75 to 100K if you do a full service. So it depends on what you want to do. Whether you want to do that or whether you really just want some advice and you'll do it yourself. So a lot of it comes down to that. And of course, really we'll know. I always say to people, we can always tailor in your budget depending on how much work you're willing to do yourself. So we're really out of time. So what I'm going to do now is thank Stephen for speaking. And I'm just going to run through now exactly what the options are. So who's enjoyed this? Who's at least got some ideas? So maybe get Trent on. And
Another
Steve,
good
feel
chat
free.
there, fellas. Yeah, really good chat, mate. It's always nice. I think it's always nice. Was you sort of started tonight's session with some quotes from the Bible, and anyone that's wise enough to look at those will see that the writing's on the wall and a lot of wisdom within there. I definitely agree with what you're saying too, Pettit, around about that your wealth's not just monetary, it's just like the stress. And at the end of the day, we're all living a life and we've got, time here to live. And the more time that we spend tossing around ideas and being stressed, then the more harm that it can make. And I think, for myself with option three, it was a pretty wise decision to do. Get it done, get it sorted, move forward from there. Don't need to think about it anymore. Multiple options. I think too, as well, guys, one big thing is that we are in the digital age right now, and digital age is a big one. One thing that Pettit helped me a lot with was, if you've got an online business and you're making your things online, if you're an online coach, even if you've got an online store, whatever it might be, well, to me, it makes complete sense that why you wouldn't set that business up in a different jurisdiction to start with, so you can start to accumulate those funds in a different country or in a different jurisdiction. Another big thing too that I always talk to people on the wealth checks is depending on what people's budgets are, where people are at. Sometimes, I think it's good to dip your toes a little bit. A lot of digital nomad visas, are pretty extensive. I think there's about 80 odd countries now that you can get digital nomad visas for a couple of $1,000s, even less, under $1,000 for some of these ones. So there's multiple options. And I think another thing too, I just want to, draw to everybody's attention is, I know you've mentioned it a few times, Warren, but don't think old ways because we're not in that world anymore. We're in a new world. So we've got to think of new ways. We do have the ability, like air wallets, wires. There's multiple different ways that you can accrue funds where you can invoice from. It's really, really, really easy to play in different jurisdictions now. It's very easy to get your wealth in multiple places, not just within Australia. Also, just like making money in other countries. Like for people that I talk to, one of my clients, I think she's done about 44 million or something last year, and an exceptional quality course. Teaching people 2-year online course, incredible, made a lot of wealth in Australia, wanted to expand and asked me, what's the first thing you think we should do? I was like, well, I would just copy what you've got and I'd put it in Russian and I'd put it in Chinese and I'd put it in different languages and I'd be targeting other jurisdictions with it as well too. So there's multiple things that you can do. So it's time to think big. It's time to think like the international sovereign because that's really what it is now. And the Sovereign Individual, if nobody's read it, great book. Highly recommend to read that so you can understand exactly the times that we are in. And it's not like the times that we're in are going to go back to where they were. It's that we're moving forward. And I think you boys have done a really good job in bringing that to people's attention. It's very clear that it's like anything, guys. It's a custom plan. It'd be the same if me, Warren, or Stephen went to a personal trainer as an example. We're going to have different wants. We're going to have different needs. We're going to get different directions on what to do. So I think it was a great chat. I like that you also spoke, Warren, about the collective consciousness. A lot of people probably remember, the big famous S that was on all our school books and on the blackboards and everywhere, with the 3 lines and the 3 lines at the bottom that you would link up, and people thought it was a stussy thing or whatever. That was one of the big tests where they dumped some stuff in a collective consciousness before we had phones, internet, things to share. It's very much the same thing at the moment. Everyone's hearing about this 6-7. No one's really sure where this 6-7 comes from. It's another collective consciousness experiment. So there's multiple things that are going on out there. For myself, one big thing that I've done this year is remove as many distractions as I could. A lot of those distractions that were present for me were just things that I really needed to attend to. And once I attended to them, it's freed me up. There's more golf, there's more beach, there's more hanging out with friends, there's more holidays, there's more traveling, there's more time to be creative as well too. So I'll encourage anyone. I'll just put a link in here, but I'll encourage anybody that wants to have a chat with myself, have a wealth check chat. I can hear where you're at, see what you're thinking, see what you're feeling. I can give you some rough ideas on costs if you want to move forward with things, depending on where you want to go. Probably be able to throw a couple of different things that you haven't thought of as well too. Because, back to even when you were talking about the AI at the start, Warren, is that at the end of this year, there's going to be a lot of these jobs that are gone. We really do need to be the entrepreneur. We've got to have that entrepreneurial mindset. We've got to look at different ways that we can make that income. But there's also no better time to be making that income. And a wise move is to collate that income directly in a different jurisdiction and, kill 2 birds with 1 stone, sort of so to speak. So links on there, guys. I've just shared it within the chat. Always open to have a chat with anybody that wants to explore what their options might be, where they currently are. Same things that I get from people all the time is I'm this age or I'm that age. Does it matter? Well, no one knows how long we're going to be here for, right? I know people that were 30 that passed away. I know people that are 90 that are still kicking it very strong. So we don't have any golden ball on that. We can't sort of, see into the future, but I think it just comes down to living a stress-free life, ensure that everything outside of you is tidy so you can spend more time internally with yourself and bring back the joy and bring back the play and have some fun. And, for myself being somebody that's still a tax resident within Australia, a few things abroad, a few digital nomad visas. It's a sense of freedom within that sense as well too. Obviously, you make networks in other countries, you make other opportunities in other countries. There's wealth opportunities, lifestyle opportunities, and it's a good life when you really sort of put your foot forward and you start to look at things as an international scope. You can kind of save your bucks a little bit when you're here and be a bit more of a minimalist when you're here, and you can branch out into other places, and that's where you can have a lot of your joy and fun. So open to anybody, guys. Please book in if I can be of help. But I think you've done a great job tonight. Warren, Pettit, always incredible. It's always nice to hear from people that are walking it, living it, breathing it. When I met Pettit about 7 years ago now, first thing that blew my mind with him was how many passports he had and how he had everything tied up. And I quite often tap him on the shoulder for words of advice. And I think that's probably a big thing that I'll kind of close off with here is that it's always good to get a bit of advice from a few different directions, hear from a few people, make your own decision, find what works for you. But everything's custom. Life is custom. We're all got our own journey. We're all living our own journey. So set the things up that you need to set up so you can live your life to your fullest. And as corny as it sounds, it's like, we all want to live our best life, but if we're ever worried about, the devil on our shoulder, what can happen, then it can definitely bring our stress and minimize the quality of life. So sort it out, tidy it up if it's something that you think you need to do, and get on living, living life.
Well, thank you so much for that, Trent. And brilliant. So booking with Trent, I'll just quickly finish off as I'm mindful of time. So look, basically what Trent was talking about, it's pretty much a chance to work out what of those four options is best for you. So that's basically why you're going to chat with Trent. And Trent will work out what's best, because depending on the option you choose, depends whether you work more with me, whether you work more with Pettit, or you work more with both of us. That's kind of what the reason we need to do that. It gives a bit of an assessment and things like that. We're giving a special offer on how this is going to actually work. And there's two parts to this. One thing we always do is give a guarantee. If Trent's pretty clear that he can't help you, he'll give you that option. And also, if you do decide after you've met with Trent to go ahead and work in a major plan with Pettit or myself, we are going to rebate the $997 against the cost. It's a special offer we're going to be doing this time to effectively make it free, just to basically, ensure you get this assessment and work out what's best for you. So thank you, everyone. The link is in the chat. We really appreciate everyone here. And look, all I can say is what Trent said. Take action, please. Do not wait. Make sure that you're here and take action and plan for what is difficult while it's easy. And if you basically forget to, take the link out of the chat and you're like, well, I can't get that link. What you do is go to the website. If you go into the product section of the Global Wealth Club, and you scroll down the products, you will see it here as well. So if you, for whatever reason, you don't have the link, just go on our site and you will find it. Thank you, Trent, for being here, and thank you, Stephen. And Trent, I look forward to seeing you next week, mate.
Yeah, thanks very much. And appreciate your time tonight, fellas, teaching tonight, but everybody took the time out for Wednesday. God bless you all, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. And we'll see you next week.
See you guys.
Next week, everyone.
Bye.
Bye for now.
Thanks, guys.